Welcome to the Success Pick and Mix podcast. I'm your host, Nicky Raby, a professional pick and mixer. I'm a personal brand coach, a speaker, an actor, a creator, and a podcaster. I'm on a mission to help you find and create your version of success. Your pick and mix of life and business on your terms. A blend that complements your personality, your goals, and your circumstances. Since 2018, I've been sharing interviews and mini episodes to help you unlock your next step, to make it real and make it happen. Round here, we dream big. We go for the ideal version. We talk about money and make moves our future selves would be proud of. This podcast is free and available for you whenever you need it. So do rate, review, and subscribe for new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices and availability, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests. Now, on to today's episode. In today's episode, I'm speaking to Julie Thompson Dredge, who is the founder of Frame PR. I've touched on PR a little bit previously in other episodes, but I really wanted to get that fresh perspective on it as my business grows, as so many of my clients are going to that next level, and really understand the undercover world of PR. It's not all ab fab and champagne receptions, although that would be really nice, wouldn't it? But I wanted to hear about some actions that you can take if you're perhaps just starting out, or when to bring PR into your business or your brand. It's a really interesting topic, and Julie shares so many great insights on this. If you want to come and join in the conversation, I'm always on Instagram and social media at Nicky Raby, so come and tag us there and let us know what you think of the episode. And also the show notes are always at nickyraby.com/podcast. And thank you so much if you're joining in the daily episodes throughout February. If you do know somebody that may benefit from these, please share it and tag me or let me know where you're listening. I would love to hear that. I know the podcast is heard all over the world, and so it would be really nice to put some faces to the statistics, which sounds weird. Anyway, that's enough from me today. Here's the episode. I hope you enjoy. Julie, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Let's start with you. What do you do? Tell us more about your company.
So I am in PR, public relations, and have a little agency called Frame PR that we started 4.5 years ago. So we concentrate on startups, mostly technology startups, but also lifestyle startups as well. And things are going really well.
Fantastic. And how did it start? Where did your career begin? Did you always have a passion for this side of the industry? How did it all start?
Yeah, it's quite interesting actually. I actually originally wanted to be a journalist, and when I was at school, I did one of those psychometric test things that shows you what kind of career you should do, and it said I should be a journalist. And I was talking to a family friend who was actually in PR, and she suggested that maybe I should go into PR because it was quite similar to journalism, but you get that kind of added business experience, and there's that interest there in the whole business world, and you can also earn slightly more money sometimes than journalism. So she thought that might be interesting. So I did some work experience when I was about 20, and then it kind of went from there. And I've always been an agency since, and really enjoyed it. It's kind of gone up and down. And it's sort of big agencies, small. And then 4.5 years ago, I decided that the startup world was where I could see a real opportunity, and it was also where I thought I really enjoyed working because I felt like the clients were very passionate. And it was just so enjoyable to help a small business grow and kind of help them on their journey, so to speak.
Definitely, because often with a small business or a startup, people are good at the things that they're really good at, and then the other things are like, oh no, I hadn't even thought about that, or I wouldn't even know where to begin. And putting those experts in, putting those people who have that experience and that you may want to think about this, this and this, it can be really invaluable in those early stages. So I guess what PR, we know it from AbFab, but PR is one of those sort of phrases that is bandied around. What does it really look like? How do people know whether they should sort of get some, as it were?
Yeah, well, the definition, I think, of PR is basically getting a message, getting your brand or your personal message out there through the media. Through things like press releases and through articles that you can really see in the media. And so that's really a PR person's job, which usually involves lots of writing and liaising with journalists, and usually not that many parties or, exciting fun things like you see in AbFab or Sex and the City.
Yes.
So it's actually quite a desk-bound job for the most part. But it involves lots and lots of communication. And your second question about how would you know if you needed it? I think when people know that they've got a really good proposition and they've seen some traction. So I think we always suggest people do PR when they've got a bit of credibility, a bit of traction, some good customers maybe behind them. And then they think, you know what, we really want to be seen a bit more by maybe investors, or we want to be seen by new stockists or whatever it might be. And at that stage, they've got some good stories to tell. Some good facts and figures there to go out with. It's always really important. And maybe they're established so much that they've got some good photography and that kind of thing. And then I think that's always a good stage to go out there to with PR.
Yes, and it's sort of, social media is really great, but there is nothing like, I guess it's one of those things that sometimes with friends and family, it's kind of like, yeah, whatever, you've been featured on this person's blog, but there's nothing like still being in the proper newspaper. And, my dad presented to me the other day the newspaper that he'd saved from 1981 the day I was born, and I was like, gosh, that is so... I mean, it's so my dad, but also it's so old school of that kind of, it's hard to replace those things, even though sort of numbers are dwindling and all the rest of it.
Really.
How did you decide what your niche was going to be and how to attract the clients that you wanted to? Because I think sometimes people don't know that they need something until you sort of tell them or suggest that this may be the case. So people might kind of go, yeah, I need to get my brand out there, or I need to get more sales or more exposure, but they sort of don't know what that process looks like or where to look for the help.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, because we have a lot of people coming to us through our website, or a lot through, probably at 90% through recommendation, people who've known other startups who've used us. So actually, we tend to have quite, an educated client base, people who really know what PR is and what they're looking for, usually because they're going through investment or they're trying to scale up in some way, and they know that getting that kind of really impressive coverage is necessary. But there is that whole swathe of the startup population out there that probably don't know what PR is and don't know when the right time is. And actually that's a real goal for us, is to try and reach those guys. So we'd like to put ourselves out there a bit more this year and start writing some interesting blog posts. We're kind of redoing a lot of our website and wanting to I guess push ourselves out there a bit more so that people know who we are. So it's really helpful to do something like this.
Oh, good. I'm glad. And I think so many of the people who are listening would have, though, on the opposite, would have all of those things of going, actually, I really need to take things to the next level, because as tempting as it can be sometimes to sort of do the creative stuff behind the scenes, or people working from home or working flexibly with their kids, there has to sometimes be that moment of, I've got to walk outside my comfort zone here, and I've actually got to say, I'm available, my sign's outside, I'm I'm ready to go to whatever it is, the next chapter. And that can be really scary, especially for the introverts amongst us.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes confidence. And that's why I think some of the forums are so useful for the one that you and I are on. They're doing it for the kids one. I recommend to so many people because it's for freelancing parents who have children, so parents who have children. It's for people in the creative industries who have kids and who are juggling both of those. And they put on really good events as well. So that's really great for people to mingle. And I think it's at those kind of occasions that people get into, someone like me might get into a conversation with a startup, and you'd have that discussion, and then you might convince them or persuade them that now is the right time to do that kind of thing. So I do think it's really important for us as an agency to get ourselves out there a bit more, doing a bit more networking now that my babies are getting slightly older.
Absolutely, because actually dragging kids halfway across London is no easy feat either, and then trying to have some sort of business conversation can be tricky. But I think you're right, sort of finding those groups or those networks that are established, but they are a place to begin very much with a chat, first of all, rather than that sense of, right, I'm going in to sell, roll all of my sleeves up, off we go. And I've been to so many of those, women in business networking events or entrepreneurs in London, and it can sometimes just feel like a weird underage disco sometimes, that everybody's in there to see what they can get, and it's a bit of a weird traffic light system of survival of the fittest, let's just say.
Yeah, but we do love working with, one of the things we want to do this year more actually is work with women in business, and those women who, like me and Alice, the girl who works with me, is women in business who also have kids and who are juggling that, because we really obviously understand that struggle, and so we really like to help those smaller businesses, maybe the freelancers who are starting out on their journey, and we really like to help them with PR. So that's one of the things that we really want to continue to put into the mix, is really helping those smaller businesses, because we do work with larger scale up, bigger tech startups and really, larger companies, but we really want to continue to work with a lot of women in business who might be, either struggling in some way or perhaps they're just starting out. And, sometimes we'll work with them on I wouldn't say a pro bono basis, but maybe on a little bit of a reduced project fee.
Fantastic. Because again, sometimes budgets are limited or, but there's always going to be, and I sort of say this to clients all the time, something or someone is always going to require your money. You're never going to get to that point where you're like, I think I'm done. I don't have any more overheads now. That's it. I've paid everything that I've had to do. But it's always a constant flow of keeping things moving and shaking and moving forward and all that good stuff. I was listening to a really interesting interview with Mary Portas, and she was talking about retail and how sometimes people just really go on the data and this is the sales and all the rest of it, and actually the bigger the company become, obviously there's more overheads and things like that, and it becomes much more stuck on that data because there's more things to pay. But she was saying that there's such a key component in terms of growth, which is about instinct and knowing that, having sort of a hunch of an idea of going, oh, actually, this would be really great if we went in this direction, or thinking about things really creatively, even though you might not have the data to back something up yet. How does that, because I know you and Alice really try and look at PR and expose it in quite a different way, of sort of quite an imaginative way as well. How do you communicate with your clients in that way so it's a combination of both?
So do you mean how do we know which clients, like instinctively know which kind of clients to go with?
Well, sort of how, no, actually, once the clients are through the door, because I think sometimes people just want the name check, but actually something smaller or something that they maybe hadn't thought about before, is going to be really great, but perhaps they don't know that yet.
Yeah, well, we are very, I guess one thing is we're really, really flexible, and we work really, really, I guess you could say nimbly, like startups like to say. So we will suggest a really bespoke approach to each of our clients. So it might be somebody really, really new that's never thought about, let's say they're in the retail space and maybe they've never thought about being in a particular sector. Like there's a woman we're speaking to at the moment who comes from a really high up position at one of the really big retail companies, and she's starting her own smaller retail company. And she hadn't really been aware of how important it was to sell herself because she has such an interesting story. And so we would look at everything that she's telling us about what she's done and what she wants to do. And in that instance, we thought it would be really great to portray her story in the more mainstream kind of women's lifestyle press. And that's something that she hadn't thought of at all, because she was thinking very much of product and reaching those kind of the trade magazines and the business. But there's a really big part to play in the kind of telling the human story behind businesses. So there's a lot to be done there. And likewise, we might think of really interesting collaborations with other clients or events that might not have occurred to them. So those things can always work really, really well, whether that's like a breakfast seminar or a really cool pop-up event. And we really like to kind of bring our clients together and make introductions wherever possible.
Oh, it's so good when you can do that as well. Like, I love that moment where you can just introduce somebody and just open a door for somebody. And I was having this chat with another lady yesterday, and she was saying, for years I used to see people who did similar things to me as just complete competition. But I really don't think I'm much more collaboration over competition, because if it's supposed to be your thing, then it will be, and it won't pass you by, and all those kind of old-fashioned phrases. But you just never know who you're going to meet or what changes, and everything is very fluid, I find.
Yeah, that's right. And I think business is changing, especially female-led businesses. And without sounding too corny, I just think there's a really big kindness plays a big part in business, I think. And that's something that we really hold dear to us. I think it's kind of part of our mantra, is kind of being kind and honest. And as the nicer you are sometimes in business, a lot more that comes back to you.
Absolutely. I had a meeting today, and the lady asked if she could reschedule it because, something happened yesterday. And it's always that thing of absolutely no problem, because things do change. And if you can be flexible and all the rest, I mean, I'm not saying like somebody's reschedules for the 17th time. Like, obviously that does get a bit annoying after a while, but there is definitely that sense of just being a human person behind the brand as well is just really, really important.
Yeah, it's great, especially working with startups, because they often want a helping hand, and they exactly as you say, they might need to reschedule things because they've got a million things going on at once. So
exactly.
Certainly in our world, it's about being helpful and flexible and friendly.
Definitely. How have you found the right people to work with and to bring people on, and known how to navigate other people within your business? Because I know so many of my clients, they kind of go, I know I need help.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm doing all the things and only slept for 2 hours last night. I know that I feel like I should make a move, but they don't quite know when to do that.
Yeah, when to do it. That's a great question. I guess for the first year I was working alone, and it was okay. I was juggling a lot before I had the two kids, so I had a lot more spare time, let's say. So that worked okay, but I did find that I was hankering after somebody to run things past, and certainly somebody to help me on some of the larger projects. So I did actually initially hire somebody who was quite junior, who had worked in a really, really large tech company before. And I had thought that was going to be just the right thing, because she had technology experience in a really famous company. And it turned out not to be quite the right thing because she didn't have quite the right understanding of PR. And that was much, much more important, that somebody didn't need very much training up. So since then, I've actually enlisted the help of some people I already know who are freelancers who have lots and lots of experience. And now our agency is much more of a collective of really experienced freelancers who I've known for a really long time. And it's working really brilliantly because there's a lot of trust there. There's a lot of innate friendship. And it's actually, clients really like the fact that you're freelance because they feel that you're not a traditional agency structure. And I actually had a client say to me the other day that they don't really trust agencies anymore.
Oh, interesting.
They feel that, it's quite interesting. They feel that the traditional agency model is a bit outdated, and they feel that they don't really trust agencies because they feel they're trying to upsell all the time, and there's a hidden agenda all the time. Whereas with freelancers, they feel there's a sort of a much more friendly approach, and that you're much more on their side, and there might be a bit more honesty there. So I thought that was quite interesting.
And I think, again, it's just people are looking for that human contact, and the amount of times where people refer to their business or their product or their startup as, their baby or their third baby or whatever it might be, that you wouldn't just leave your child with somebody willy-nilly and kind of go, okay, then good luck, like you do whatever you like. Most of us would have that sense to kind of try and leave it in good hands. So
they really like that. It's absolutely true. Like the fact that they're a startup and they're, I don't like this word, but they're like hustling. They're working really, really hard, and it's that, again, not necessarily struggle, but it's that real kind of daily grind. And they know that you as a small business owner understand that, and so there's a real kind of, synergy there. It's much more, you're kind of both on each other's side.
Definitely. How do you cope with pressure? Because inevitably, if you're running a small business or you're freelance or you've got kids or you've been up all night, sometimes there are days that just seem really easy, and then there are other days where you're like, oh my goodness, it's 12 o'clock, I've ticked 1.5 things off my to-do list, I've got oodles and I've only got 2 more hours of chat, or whatever it might be. Or sometimes that I need this and I need it now, the deadline is in 45 minutes. What sort of stuff helps you to keep grounded and focused on the job so you don't kind of, slide down a wall like Pat Butcher crying?
Yeah. Oh God, there's lots of different things. Coffee, definitely. Yeah. Coffee, but not too much coffee. So I find black coffee is good, but just a couple of black coffees. A good diet, so you're kind of clear-headed. I find that actually interestingly helps me quite a bit. Getting enough sleep, obviously, and that doesn't always happen. I have a 10-month-old baby and a 2-year-old, so most of this year I've been living on adrenaline.
Yeah.
So I think, interestingly enough, actually, living on adrenaline can help if you're a business owner. And sometimes when you don't have that much sleep, you do grab a couple of coffees and just feel like you have to just get on with it, and you just have to almost battle through that day.
Definitely. And you don't have any wiggle room for nonsense. I always found that in that kind of first year with my little boy, it was that sense of, if I would speak to, my partner or something like that, and he's like, okay, I'm like, so is this happening now, or is this, what's going on? You sort of become quite brusque with people because you don't have any capacity for, I don't know, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think being on that note, if you work from home, sometimes you can be pulled into doing things, like admin things, home admin, and, you have to be quite strict on that. So I find that wherever I can, I try not to work from home.
Yeah.
Before I had the 2 children, I was working nearly daily in a lovely co-working space. And that's absolutely ideal. Like, I found I was extremely productive when I was working there. So, the right working environment's really important, where you don't have there's just the right sort of level of noise. It feels productive, but, you're not really disturbed by lots of other things. So you do have to focus in the work time that you have allocated to you. Yeah.
Of course, and not feel that pressure to be trying to do all the things. It's slightly moving away from that now, but that sense of multitasking of like, I'm building an empire while my child sleeps underneath the desk.
Yeah.
For me, like, it's probably taken an hour or something silly to get that child to sleep by that time, and that's way more stressful trying to do all the things. And I sort of realised that and learned it the hard way, that I didn't get any prizes for being the only person who could do all the things, or going, don't worry, no, it's fine. I've been being a martyr to it, really. And
absolutely. I think you need to accept. I mean, I think most working mothers would say the same thing, that they can only be successful at work if they have help at home.
Yes.
And I think that pretty much needs to be, regular childcare, the same kind of childcare every day, and so you know where you are all the time, and a supportive partner, all those types of things will really, really help. So I do think you need to be very focused when you're in your work time, and that helps you, not to be too stressed.
No, and try and have that point of the day where you just switch off at some point, and you can have that. Even just walking around the block for 10 minutes by yourself, it's golden, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. Like, definitely having a bit of a lunch break sometimes, taking advantage of the fact that you work for yourself sometimes, and doing things like maybe going to the gym in the day for an hour. I don't do that enough, by the way. I did it the other day and it felt absolutely amazing. I haven't done it in about 2 years.
Yeah, isn't it funny? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, the simple things like good food, exercise and sleep, they actually work. That's a revolution.
Totally. I was saying to a friend yesterday that I'm one of those really weird people who quite likes January.
Yes, me too.
She was laughing at me like, you're like the only person in the world that likes January. But I feel that it's a really nice month to kind of refocus on all those things that make you feel good, like, I don't know, decluttering or eating the right thing or exercising a bit, any of those things.
Definitely. We've been doing all those stuff in our house, and we've moved some stuff around in our hallway, and then there was this kind of random shoe rack around, and I found myself saying to my partner, like, you've got 2 days. If you want to keep this, you need to decide like where it's going, because otherwise we're all going to trip over it. And anyway, he's finally done something with it. But I think you've got to have that momentum and that clean space at home if you can, and cultivate it. That would be... It's so good. I would love to talk about pitching, because I know you guys, it's part of the game of sort of going to meet people and things like that. But I know it's one of those words that is quite scary for people, like negotiating or creating boundaries or meeting expectations. Can you share any words of wisdom around that, of like how to prepare or what to give or what not to give? Because I know so many people would love to hear.
Absolutely. There's lots of things I was thinking about on this front just today. We're actually preparing a big pitch at the moment. It's interesting because when Alice and I used to do a lot of pitching a long time ago, so I've actually been in PR for about 16 years. Back in the old days, pitching was a very, very formal thing. And you'd often have to stand up in a pitch and you'd be wearing your suit and
shoulder pads.
Yeah, the shoulder pads, and it was all really serious, And it's interesting, like, I think nowadays a pitch tends to be much more of a conversation, and it's about kind of taking that networking to the next level and just having a really nice two-way conversation, really, with your laptop on the table. So it's a bit less formal. I think obviously the usual things about being really, really prepared. Prepare something that obviously not only looks really impressive, presentation deck that looks really slick. It's always great. We've actually had someone help us with that today. And then be assertive as well. When you go in there, if it's a face-to-face one, try and be confident and assertive, especially when it comes to budgets. Don't be too shy. I think knowing your worth is an important thing, and a lot of women have troubles with that, and for sure I have in the past. So it's just remembering your your worth and your experience, and being confident when you discuss the numbers. I think that's important.
I think I agree, and that sense of investing in, like getting somebody to help you sort of actually win the pitch and things like that. Yeah. Like if you go above and beyond in that, I mean, not to, put yourself at risk or anything like that, but if you actually take the whole process really seriously, one thing that I found, certainly in terms of acting, if I ever go for jobs or meetings or things like that, most people do the bare minimum, and that sort of shocked me. I sort of thought that, that would not be the case at all. And I remember when I left drama school and I had to do a showcase at the Criterion in Piccadilly, and I had 2 performances, and I bought this top and this kind of very early 2000s skirt and all the rest of it, and it was a white top. And my mum said, "Oh, where's that top from?" And when she came down to London next time, she bought me the same top again. And I was like, "Mum, I've got this." We're like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?" And she was like, "No, both shows are as important as each other. And also, like, you're wearing a white top, you're taking a big risk anyway. Yeah. Make sure that they do that." But, even on the day, the amount of people that sort of rocked up in a creased shirt or just looking a bit dishevelled or just kind of winged it. And, even like the way they put their CV and the waiting area afterwards, it was all a bit like, "Oh, sorry." And you just never want to have any of those moments where you're a bit apologetic or saying, "Oh, I had meant to do this, but I didn't end up doing it."
No, I agree, and I think especially in the small business world, this whole idea of winging it seems to be quite popular in a way. Like, oh, I just, I don't know, I just wing it, or I'm kind of getting by on no sleep, or I don't know what I'm doing, or whatever. But I think when it comes to pitching, if you're pitching for something you really want, I think, and as you say, enlist a lot of help, whether it's in the look and feel of it, get a designer to make your pitch deck look great, or get somebody. Like, actually, I sometimes work with another PR person who I've known from a long time ago, who's really brilliant on ideas, and I run my ideas past him sometimes. So just kind of putting a lot of effort into it, really, in all different ways, and showing the human side of what differentiates you as well, I think is important. Making sure that comes across so that you're not just being generic when you're talking about what you can offer, because especially in PR, a lot of the offering can sound quite similar. Like, everybody promises great results or says they can get fantastic coverage in this publication or that publication. So it's about giving concrete examples of why it is that you're a bit different.
Yes, and making it relevant to the client as well.
Yeah,
that the
absolutely.
amount of pitches I hear for this podcast, and there's 4 paragraphs about what this person has done, but there's no evidence that they've ever listened to the podcast or know what it's about. They've just kind of gone, "Oh, that vaguely sounds like, so I'll just pitch them and just shout about them." Whereas actually you have to keep meeting somebody halfway and be useful, I guess, and add value.
Absolutely, and that's actually the crux of what we have to do in PR as well, because journalists get so many pitches, and obviously our job is to pitch them, and they get so many generic pitches with these very bland-looking press releases that they sometimes take the piss out of on Twitter. You'll see them. Another one of these ridiculous press releases today. So our whole approach is being a bit more individual to those journalists, and we kind of pride ourselves on knowing a lot of journalists personally, and being able to pitch them individually and give them a story that's based on what they've written about previously, our knowledge of that, or what's really topical, something like that.
Because I see sometimes influencers on Instagram, and they'll be showing a new lipstick or whatever, and to my sort of naive eye, I'm just like, this is just another lipstick. But that person is going completely and utterly bonkers about this lipstick, and I just think, gosh, the PR did a really great job. I mean, I don't doubt that it's a great product as well, but like understanding what and getting that message across, you know, you really do buy into it, and by the end of it you're like, I'm ordering it, I'm doing it, I've never worn orange lipstick before because I've got orange hair, but yeah, I'm still doing it. But I've got one final question, which is, where would you like to be in 5 years' time, in business, in life?
Oh, that's such a great question. I haven't asked that for a really long time. That's obviously the typical interview question, isn't it? Yeah, in 5 years' time,
sleeping
more for sure. Well, firstly, we're trying to move out to the countryside, which I hope will happen. So I'd love to kind of wake up and hear birdsong and just, you know, be a bit more peaceful than the London life that we live at the moment. So yeah, that on a personal level. I would definitely love to have more people working for me as well, and have a few more retained clients, so we've got more of that stability there. At the moment we're doing quite a lot of projects, so yeah, I'd just love to have, I don't know, 5 or 6 great, you know, really well known startup clients, and be doing more creative work. At the moment we're doing relatively small projects, launching products or doing funding announcements, but I'd love to get our teeth into some more creative stuff in the future, and have a few people working with us in the same way, I think, the same freelance kind of network, most of us working remotely. I think that's going to be the future of work, really, people working remotely and having experienced teams, but not all coming together in that traditional kind of in an office every day kind of way.
Yes, I really, I agree. And I had a chat with a client the other day, and she was sort of saying, like, gosh, I don't know how you're doing all the things. It feels like you're doing a lot, but I don't tend to commute. I mean, I go into town a couple of days a week maybe, or, you know, when I'm sort of scheduling clients, but a lot of my clients are international and they're on Skype. So I don't really have to sort of, meet people and do all of that sort of stuff. So it's one of those where you go, that's where you really save time. That's where you can actually get some good dinner on the table because you've had time to cook it, and not an hour and 15 minutes on a slow riding bus.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's, you know, I say to so many people all the time that I am so grateful that we live in the era that we live in. Like, there's never been a better time to be a business owner. You know, you don't have to go into an office if you don't want to. You could hot desk from a co-working space a couple of days a week or month if you fancy, if that helps you be more productive. But, you know, we can pretty much all work from home on our laptops now. And like, that's, you know, it's just amazing compared to my old life when I was a lot younger and we were commuting all the time and glued to the desk, and it's sort of.
And I love that sort of actually taking a minute to remember all the great things about your life choice, because sometimes you can get stuck, and we're recording this towards the end of January, so I know lots of people will have just paid their tax return, even though they vowed that they would do it on the 1st of their accounting, you know, whatever, but they just paid that, and sometimes it can be quite disheartening at this time of year when it's cold and dark outside, and there's a lot going on in politics at the moment, and people can get quite caught in this, oh my goodness, and get scaremongered. But actually there are so many great things, and so many of the things that I'm now doing because I've invested in myself, because I'm constantly learning and innovating and changing things. It seems weird when people are not, and that's, I guess, what's needed as well.
Yeah, because you're one of those multi hyphenates, aren't you?
They get everywhere.
Yeah. So yeah, you're a great example of that. Absolutely. But yeah, I do think it's wonderful. I think, you know, there's, especially for parents and mothers, you know, who, if for one reason or another might not be able to go back to their previous job, or they feel pushed out of the workforce or whatever it might be. You know, I just think it's so exciting that there's so much opportunity to start your own business, whatever that is. If it's a parenting blog to a huge multinational business, you can start a business from home for very little money, and you know, you can do that, and you can juggle it, and it's
and even if you're doing something else, you can start to dip your toe in, or do an online course, or just sort of suss things out. Or, I mean, YouTube can literally be your best friend, you know, and everything. I don't think kids are going to go to school in the end. They're just going to watch, you know, they'll be contouring and just learning business on YouTube. But I hope that still continues. But if people want to come and find you and find out more about Frame, where should they go?
Absolutely. We have a website, which is framepr.co.uk, and we're on Twitter as well. We're trying to do a bit more tweeting this year, so that's FramePR UK. And hopefully we will have a blog that's going to go up quite soon, where we're going to be putting a lot of pieces out there about the PR industry, the startup industry as well. So, yeah.
Well, I will watch and I will share everything in the show notes as well. So, and also if you're thinking about, if you're listening to this and thinking, oh, actually I do need a bit of PR, like Julie and Alice, a call or set up a chat or something like that, I'm sure there'll be lots of ways that they can help you get your business out there. But thank you so much, Julie. I've learned so much as well. And these chats I always find really invigorating and just like, oh, yes, I'm going to do that. Yes, that's going to the top of the to-do list. So thank you so much.
Oh, that's great. Thanks so much for the opportunity. That's amazing. Thank you.
No worries. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, feel free to rate, review, and subscribe for all the brand new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices, availability, or just to have a chat with me, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests, and I'll see you next time.